Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to the town board work session for November 8th. I'm going to ask everybody to please turn off cell phones and electronic devices. Assisted listening devices are available for the hearing impaired. I'll ask everybody to please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd also like to ask for a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you very much. Agenda approval, does anybody have to add anything to the agenda?
One moment, please. Yes, well, actually, no. It's fine. Well,
Senior Center? No, you guys up there. Okay.
The recreation personnel will cover both.
Okay. So, move for approval on the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, department head statements. Donna, do you have anything?
I do not.
Captain, anything? I do not. Jackie, you're on the agenda. Deputy Supervisor Conrad, anything?
Nothing.
Dave Train, anything? No. Mr. Zano, anything?
Nope.
Okay, and I know Mr. Ritter couldn't make it, so moving on.
No, Mike's in the back.
Oh, Mike, anything?
No, we're good.
Okay, sorry.
Ice rink fighters, we talked about the ice rink.
Okay. And Melinda, you're on the agenda as well, so. Okay, Linda Johnson,
Yes.
go ahead.
I have, as you know, with your packets, I have Cindy.
Linda,
Cindy,
you're gonna have to
yeah.
speak at the mic or come forward
Oh,
and
I'm
speak
sorry.
out.
I'm usually loud, you know.
What?
Yeah,
I usually, you know.
Okay, I've got Cindy here to do a little presentation along with Debbie Lettieri, who's from Town of Cambria. And this has to do with where our assessments and our values are headed. But even more so today, a quick thing on, there's an actual grant out there to try to help us if we decide, or if we can combine with other municipalities in order to be able to get this done at a more effective cost to our taxpayers and to the town. So I'd like to introduce Cindy first, and then Debbie will help her out. And I know that, Steve, you were at the supervisors meeting, so you know a little bit more
cool.
about this, so.
Yeah, thank you, Linda.
Thank you for having me here this evening. And I know I've talked to the supervisor a little bit at those two supervisors meetings. I've been to Lewiston a couple times on presentations over the years for reassessment. People say, why now? The market's so hot, why would you do this now? I think that the problem is you're seeing these equalization rates are so volatile and they keep changing, and it's not a function of their assessments at all. It's just New York State, and you can't control it without doing a project of this nature. So I know you had, Linda shared the packet with you. I will definitely take questions. I'm not sure, how in depth you want me to go, but I think it's just important to realize that these are tough decisions. Doing a reassessment is tough. I've been doing it for over 30 years with GAR all across the state, and this year the city of Lockport and the town of Lockport is updating. We've performed the town of Cambria project a couple of years ago. We did the city of Niagara Falls several years ago. It's never easy. The key to these projects is to be as transparent as possible with your property owners, explain the situation. Reassessments do not raise more tax dollars. The budgets are the budgets. You haven't had an update in several years, and taxes do change. So it's just a mechanism for collecting them. And while a lot of leaders are concerned about properties that are going up and paying more taxes, you also have to think of the folks that their taxes will go down. And even though, the equalization rate's close to 50%, everyone's assessment will go up, but doesn't mean everyone's taxes will go up. Typically, a third of the town will see an increase in their estimated taxes, a third will stay the same, and a third will go down. So while you're concerned about the folks that are going up, you really have to concern yourself about those that receive a benefit. And it just basically flattens out the line so that everybody's paying what they should be paying. And as you all know, and you've seen, the market's very strong, and properties that have increased way over their assessment, so more than 50%, Linda can't change those. So they're not paying their fair share, and someone else in town is picking up that share. So there's only one pie. It has to be collected through all the properties. And this is commercial and vacant land and all the properties involved. So it's painful. We understand that for some, but it really is the best thing to do. And unfortunately, there isn't a state law that says you have to do this, other than they have to all be at the same rate. Now, if every property in Lewiston was at 50%, we could just convert the math and be done. But you have properties that are at 40%, properties that are at 60%. They're all over the board. The state just takes an average. So that's the problem with the system. And in doing the reassessment, it brings everybody on the same playing field. And the key is to keep it up. It's a very tough decision, and you go years and years with it not being done, and then you're faced in the same situation. So it's much better if you can update them and keep them either annually close to 100 or in a 3 or 4 year cycle. It's best for your property owners. We're also getting a lot of questions about why now the market's so hot, it's going to tank, you're going to raise everybody's assessment. I don't believe it's going to tank. Western New York and upstate does not see those spikes. It does more of this instead of like Arizona and Florida when they do this and the properties go up and down. I just don't see that that's going to happen. Bidding wars have started to kind of lessen. There's more supply. That's helpful. But I don't see that the values are going to plummet. If they did, we would lower assessments. And we've done that. We did that in the city of Buffalo and the city of Niagara Falls years ago. It was painful because we had to lower them, and some people actually saw an increase in their taxes. So it's an opposite effect. So long story short is it's a hard decision. I understand that, but it's really what's best for the whole, and that's what you have to keep in mind, is what's best for the entire community, not just one group of property owners. Do you have any specific questions or anything you'd like me to go in more detail with?
Well, is the other young lady going to make another presentation, or you want questions now?
Oh,
Are you together?
Yeah, we're together.
we're together.
After we apply for a grant, and we are given tons of money to be able to fund this, and then we pick a date to start, what's the time frame to complete it?
Well, the grant's a separate issue, and I'll speak to that in a minute. The time frame in this scenario, and I put a proposed schedule in, is about 2 years. So if you start it in January, it would be done in 2024. There's legal dates that coincide with projects, and you need a complete data review done here. It hasn't been done in a long time, so it's about a 2-year project. The grant is proposed to do more of a shared services, get multiple communities across Niagara County to apply for this grant. Washington County up in the North Country applied for this. They had 6 municipalities that had not updated, and they needed to get those updated. They were awarded the grant, so there is a precedence for it. Grant application doesn't go out until July. You're awarded sometime in October, so you'd be waiting a whole other year to start a project. So that's one concern. They fund about 85% of the project cost, which is a lot if you get approved. You definitely have to have some kind of shared service, so multiple towns that will work together. What we presented to the supervisors was an opportunity to maybe folks that want to go now sooner and not wait for the initial grant, that maybe get on a cycle, a 3 or 4 year cycle, so that it's constantly being updated, and have the grant fund that portion of it. The New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services has some funding, but it's very small. Most towns see very little. What did you pay your get, like not even $2 a parcel? So they have a very small pool. Cities get paid first. It's very complicated. So you really can't count on that money. But the grant itself would, if it was, it's an incentive. If you decide not to wait for the grant, we're hoping we can design the grant that says any of the towns going forward that want to get on a cycle, they could receive some money for that. So it's still a little gray area, unfortunately with that. It's not a direct aid payment. If you do this, you're going to get paid.
Well, you said on a grant, if we get approved,
Yes.
what do they look at that you would or would not be approved?
The grant, what my understanding is, and I'm not a grant writer, is that they want to see that there's shared services. So that, Lewiston would go with Porter, or another municipality, or multiple across the county, and how you would work together and how you would share one common contractor, how you would share the information, how you would work over the years, updating it, working together. Debbie had some great ideas that when it's a municipality's off year, they're not updating, that the assessor would maybe help out someone who is updating. We're talking with their university tomorrow about maybe getting some interns involved and sharing those resources. So they want to see some shared resources, basically, across the board.
And this is a project that the whole town would be done, and then it would be put into operation.
Yes, yes. And there's tools available now to maintain the investment. It's a lot easier than it was even 10 years ago. There's a lot of technology, there's a lot of information. Get the roll updated, get the inventory, property inventory updated, and it is maintainable.
You don't go into anyone's home.
Absolutely
you do it all
not.
on the outside.
Not unless we're invited. Yes.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. Bill, we have a lot more like the Google Earth and pictometry.
I can't hear you.
We have a lot more Google Earth, pictometry. That's a lot of the stuff we use too. There wouldn't be anybody going through anybody's homes. The only time we do that on a yearly basis is on an inspection, a new house, some major update. But other than that, no.
The laws have gotten very strict about trespassing, accessing. As a contractor, we have not done even on-site inspections unless we're invited. It's very, very clear.
Is there any segment that's more likely to go up or fluctuate, like undeveloped land, smaller houses, larger houses?
It's very hard to predict until you get into the sales analysis, but everyone will see an increase because you're at 50%. But it's real estate isn't consistent across the board. So depending on, I would assume like Linda's new builds are on pretty close to that 50% value. So they're going to be close. Somebody that hasn't reassessed in numerous years, they're going to see a stronger increase. But the sales will tell us that when we analyze them. It'll tell us what. But in this market, there seems to be everything is desirable right now.
You mentioned that 50% figure several times. Is that the target? Like, if you live in a $300,000 home, would you be assessed at $150,000 ideally?
On average, but here's the problem. Not everybody's at that true 50%.
No, but what is your goal when you go through it? Your goal?
100%. They need to be at 100. So,
Really?
yes. We don't really look at the old assessment when we're doing the value review. It's all about current market value. What
You
it
don't
could,
send out a form asking people how many bathrooms they have or anything.
yes, we do. After we get done with the initial data verification, everybody, all the residential folks would get a form populated with all the new information. They could also go online and look at it. They can, at that point, request us to do an interior. Maybe there's some, inferior type of conditions going on. We get a pretty good response when we do that, but mostly when we mail out the new values, we have an informal review period. And that's when we really hear from folks. Oh, yeah, I should tell you about my basement. I should tell you about my, nothing's been updated. That type of thing. And then that's that time when you can really, talk to the property owner and talk about some of these concerns that they might have. If these were fixed, I could sell it for this, but they're not. So there's a lot of communication with the property owners.
And Cindy, without really looking at the grant, because what I hear is that it needs to be done regardless of the grant.
Right.
What kind of a cost for a full reassessment are we talking about, roughly?
Well, depending on the actual services needed, and I always get trapped in this because if the town decides to go to RFP, I've already given you a price estimate. But basically, for a size with doing complete data collection and review, new photos, new sketches, new everything, you're probably talking between $400,000 and $450,000.
This is two-year cost?
Yes. And we have opportunity to, we can design payment schedules that are a little more, you can push a payment into a third year if you need to, be flexible. You don't have to split it equally over the 2 years. We have a little more flexibility to that.
If there's a cooperation, as you mentioned, in going for the grant with multiple municipalities.
I got a glass between us here.
Oh, sure. If there's a cooperation with multiple municipalities, and obviously that's a lot more work, does this 2-year timeline still apply?
Well, no, I would say no, because depending on who's coming in and how we would coordinate it and who is working together, it may push out for another year.
So,
yeah.
So the more municipalities may increase the ability to get a grant, but may also increase the timeline of the job.
Depending on who has to go first, who needs the more work. Obviously, we've got some municipalities, Cambria doesn't need a data review.
Right.
City of Lockport, Town of Lockport, they don't need that. They've already done it. So it kind of depends on who would be working together.
Do you find that you get more accurate numbers using adjacent contiguous municipalities and doing them all together versus doing them separately?
No, it makes no difference. We have to look at each town individually first and draw that. You have plenty of sales activity here in Lewiston,
Sure.
but we use those sales first. The only time we look elsewhere is if it's a unique property, some of the commercial properties, some land, some ag land, things like that. But we try and stay initially within that municipalities.
Let me ask something else. In a perfect world, you go through and you get all of the homes 100% assessment. Does the equalization rate then for this town become what?
100%.
So that's what their tax rate's going to be based on, 100%.
Right. But you're dealing with a larger total tax base. So when you divide that budget levy into that total, the rate comes way down. So your rate now would be half estimate, half the per thousand rate than it is right now.
And John, so that you know too, there's more, I'm sorry.
Oh, checked.
There's more involved as far as just the 100%. We could actually do a full update and stay 80%. But if you're going to do it, you're going to go to the 100% and try to keep it there. Ideally, you're going to try to keep it there. Because those tax rates go down, but it's not just the tax rates, even the impact of our exemptions, our veterans exemptions, our school exemptions are dropping. Most of the calls I get right now is, and the taxes, maybe the school taxes might have gone up 15, 20 cents. And the county taxes are normally going up a certain amount. These people are calling beside themselves, but I spend a tremendous amount of time on the phone trying to explain to them that their escrow account shortage isn't because of that. That they're counting on that that STAR discount that was almost $650, which is now $400. Your senior ones, your senior partial low exemptions, your veterans, your disability ones. That all comes into play when you're not at the 100%. And when you're talking about 100%, that doesn't mean 100% is where your tax rate's gonna be on that tax rate, like Cindy's saying. You've got a larger pot to take from at the 100%. But the key thing is, in all the years I've been here, 23 years, I can't figure out in my head why New York State allows this and why, because they tie your hands in many ways. I get a property at $350,000 that I have assessed for $100, and I can't touch that thing because it's called spot assessing. So now here goes your equalization rate. You got the guy next door paying a lot less taxes than the guy that is assessed at whatever percentage before they sold the house or before you're putting a value. The only ones I ever touch anymore, and even that is questionable, except for the new builds and maybe additions and that. If I find one that comes to my attention, and you find this all the time because the data is so far out of date, and let's say it's a subdivision that it sells for $450,000, and all the other ones are at 95 and 100 and 150. It's a red flag for me, even in this market. I run out, I take a look, I'll say, well, I'll find out sometimes that yes, they have done updates or in reports in the Realtor.com, extra square footage that we might not have caught. Then I can address those. I can at least address them and say, you know, I got to try to bring this fair to everybody else on that street. They can argue with me. Where it lies is they say that it's my opinion. And then they can go to grievance and say, well, we don't like the idea that she did that, even though they're higher than everybody in their neighborhood. So that's what it creates, is this constant inconsistency where if most people understood it out there, they wouldn't be carrying on about we don't want a revamp. We want a revamp because my neighbor doesn't pay as much as I do. And that's the main goal here. How we get there without doing like a every 3-year cycle and making sure it's there is beyond me. You know, like I said, it's always been like this. In the years I've been here, I've kind of expected some major change to come in where that was concerned because it just isn't. And now in this market, the past 7-8 years, it's just blown out of control.
Thank you.
And you would do vacant land also, that.
Everything. And it's all roll sections, so even we would look at the non-taxable properties, because your total tax base also comes into play for insurance purposes, for some other reasons. So we have to look at everything, whether it's taxable or not. The utility properties, everything.
One last question from me. If we were to start before we got the grant, and then we applied for the grant, would the fact that we already started help, hinder, or you don't know about the possibility of our grant?
Well, I believe, and I'm not positive, but if you already start, I don't think you would be eligible to have
The initial cost covered, or a portion of that, but the goal would be then to, that next cycle, that you would be eligible for that, to work on that, so.
So when you're saying every 2 years, sorry, I know there's another question.
Okay.
If we do it every 2 years, then we're going to pay this amount of money every
No. The initial year is your initial investment. And then there's, 2 or 3 years down the road, what we do with a lot of clients is we're just consulting. We come in, we look at their models, we rerun the numbers, the assessor will usually do the reviews then, that type of thing. So, it's a fraction of what it was.
Okay.
And John, the reason for that is because, Linda, when was the last time the whole town was assessed?
I came here in 2000, and it was just before then.
So
It's been that long. Our commercials have never been done. And the land is so far out of, the land has just never been done either, and it's way below what it should be, so.
Cindy, can you explain when you were talking about not waiting for the grant, but doing some sort of a rolling analysis? Is that what you were talking about? Maybe getting some of it started now? How would that work?
If you decide to implement the project now, that probably would not be covered by the grant.
Understood.
Because the grant would come in July, it would be approved in October, you wouldn't get the money until 23, that type of thing. But the goal of the grant is to take communities that share school districts and have them on the same cycle. So if Lewiston went for 24, the next time they would go is maybe 27 or 28. And the shared school district towns would go together.
Understood.
Then for that project, you could get some funding for that.
I see.
You also do tax exempt properties?
Yes,
Beautiful.
everything.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Senior Center Director Melinda Olek. I know Phil's got something for you.
Melinda and I have been in conference with this for quite a while. I'd like to have a motion to confirm and approve the separation of the former van driver, Ray London. His last day of employment was October 6th, 2021, and we just want to make sure that we have the paper trail in place.
Is there a motion?
Yes, it
I'll
is.
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else on that, Linda? Melinda?
No,
Went from one to
I
the
have
other.
the ad, I'll distribute it and try to find another van driver.
Okay.
You're
In the
working on that
meantime,
now.
Randy and Mike are
I
filling
can't
in.
hear you, Melinda, I'm sorry.
In the meantime, Randy and Mike are filling and covering all the days.
Okay, thank you very much.
And when is the Thanksgiving party?
November 17th.
November 17th. If you'd like to stop by and say hello, regretfully, all the meals have been reserved.
But we'll have some, we always have. My husband makes pizza and other snacks.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not Thanksgiving.
What time was that on the 17th?
11.
Yeah.
They usually eat about 11:45, so if you want to visit, come around 11.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Approval of meeting minutes for October 25th.
Move for approval as written.
Second. The motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Audit payment, Councilman Blake.
I move to approve the regular abstract of claims number 21-02837 through 21-02980 and recommend payment in the amount of $204,034.24 plus a post audit of $12,542.40.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Nothing in the pending or old business, new business, done any resident correspondence? Okay, my liaison report. Anything else for legal?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
There was nothing for engineering, and Bob had a prior commitment, so we couldn't make it for GHD. Finance, Jackie?
Yes, tonight I asked the board to adopt the 2022 budget. Is it before you or?
Move for approval as presented. I talked to Jackie yesterday and today of the items, and I found them in order.
Second.
The motion is second. Any other questions?
Comment?
Go ahead.
Great job with the budget.
Oh, thank you. It's everybody.
Oh, I know, but we see it, the public doesn't see it. We see it being in here till 8 o'clock at night working on this stuff. That's really appreciated.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Motion carried.
Also tonight, I asked for your approval of the budget revisions that were submitted into your board packet.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
As presented. We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Now, why is it half the size as the preliminary? What has to be other?
The 2022 budget, all of the department paperwork is in behind.
Much better.
What does that have to do with the revision? So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Guyton, ice rink hires?
Ice rink hires. like to move to approve the individuals for hire for recreation aides at the Lewiston Family Ice Rink. Frank Frederick, returning $13. Robert Woods, not returning $12.50. Alonzo Rocco, not returning $12.50. Ethan Fournier, not returning $12.50. Patrick Finley, not returning $12.50. Anthony Miller, not returning $12.50. And Sophia Massaro, a new employee, not returning $12.50. Trent Reed, not returning $12.50. That's a motion to hire those, and just a brief comment that Mike has to have a full hire of employees because these kids are so active in school, they're not always available. That's a motion.
Second.
A motion, a second.
I got a question though. They're not returning?
When I say that, they're new employees. They were not here in the summer.
Oh, okay.
Right? So,
Okay.
yes, they were.
All right.
So we can see that they worked once before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I'd like to read the letter, please. This is from the Town Lewiston Recreation Director, Mike Dashenhow, to the supervisor and the honorable members of the Lewiston Town Board. It has been a privilege to serve as, let me take this off. It has been a privilege to serve as the Town of Lewiston Recreation Director for nearly the last 20 years. I have worked with the very best of people over the years and that have been committed to the residents we serve. I will forever remain in awe of the willingness to volunteer and come together as a community. It is with such sadness that I must announce my resignation from this post effective December 31st, 2021. In order to pursue a proper transition to the new director as well, to ensure that there is no interruption of program, it will be available to our residents, and I'm offering to stay on till Friday the 31st, 2021. And if that is desired of the Lewiston Board, please be aware that my office hours would have to be worked around my new schedule with my new employer. There are so many people to thank and so many accomplishments to be proud of. I wish nothing but success for the future of the town as it grows and parks and recreation continues to grow with it to meet the changing needs of the community. That's a motion. There'll be some discussion.
We have a motion.
To accept this resignation.
Second. We have a motion, and a second. Discussion.
Yes, discussion. Mike, we left that date open, and we have that as the date. You're going to be able to work your new job and cover the ice rink during this period of time.
That's right.
As we had discussed. And then if we need your services afterwards, we'll work that out. That for the month when the ice rink is still open.
Oh, I'm sorry, for the month of it,
The ice rink is still open until its closing date.
its closing date is January 4th, so we're talking about 12 January.
We should be able to handle it all. Right? And I'd like to wish Mike the best of luck with his new position and to his new career opportunities, and I'm sure it'll all work out.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck, Mike.
Good luck.
Councilman Jacoby.
I have a letter from the planning board, the planning board meeting in regular session October 21st, to review the site plan request for Nicholas Richazi for property located at 4699 Model City Road. The project is actually a 6-foot chain link fence. We were at this planning board meeting, and he certainly had all his ducks in a row. I'm going to make a motion that first we approve a seeker for this.
You approve the negative deck.
Approve the negative deck.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then secondly, I make a motion that we approve the project itself.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That's all I have, Steve.
We're not going to do the other one?
Then we go to Councilman Morial.
Kind of an approval for seeker for Martin Evelyn Lauer subdivision. The above caption project was reviewed at the October 12, 2021 Environmental Commission. The commission recommends a negative declaration for the town board, so I'll make that motion.
Second.
With a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
The planning board meeting in regular session on October 21st, 2021, classified as a minor subdivision, a request from Martin Laura for a one-lot subdivision for property at 4300 Williams Road, SBL number 75.00-1-24.1. The planning board recommends approval of the subdivision as presented.
Is that a motion?
A motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Councilman Myers, anything? Nothing tonight? Okay, resident statements. Would anybody like to speak? Okay. Upcoming board commission meetings. We have the Historic Preservation Commission on November 9th at 5:45 p.m.
No environmental, no agenda.
No environmental. Parks and Rec Advisory Committee is November 17th at 7 p.m.
I'm sorry, that's changed.
Okay,
We're, the 19th is our opening day for the night. We're gonna be convening there for, the opening.
okay, so November 19th, what time, Mike?
We haven't set a lot of time yet, probably 5 o'clock.
Okay,
Mike, I sent you a text, I will.
Yes, thank you.
so Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee will coincide with the opening of the ice rink on November 19th, time to be announced. Planning Board is November 18th at 6:30 p.m. Town Board is November 22nd, 2021, 6 p.m. Zoning Board of Appeals has been canceled. And just a reminder that this Thursday is Veterans Day. Town Hall will be closed for Veterans Day. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Well, and then good luck, and hope it works out.